Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Tony Camella, physical therapist with E3 Rehab. If you are someone who experiences wrist pain during push-ups, you have come to the right place. In this video, I'm going to show you 6 push-up modifications which can allow you to continue training the push-up with less or no pain. Additionally, I'm going to show you a progressive wrist loading sequence and exercises for improving wrist extension range of motion, since both of these can help further increase your tolerance and reduce pain during the push-up. Now, I have tried and tested all of these modifications, and I actually still use some of these in my training today. This is because I've broken my right wrist 3 times, twice back in college, and more recently about a year ago. Long story short, I can now tolerate a handful of bodyweight push-ups on a good day. But if I'm doing higher volume or adding weight, I currently use one of these modifications because it allows me to continue training and work towards my goals. Push-ups require a certain amount of wrist extension, which is dependent on how you perform them, but generally it is about 90 degrees. If this loaded wrist extension is painful, here are 6 options to choose from. Option 1, hands on a plate. Place your hands on a plate and let the fingers hang over the edge. The amount of wrist extension does not actually change. However, this does place less tension in your finger and wrist flexors. In other words, you may be able to still tolerate push-ups with the wrist extended if you remove finger extension from the equation. Option 2, hands on a towel. Placing a towel under the heel of the hand will reduce the relative degree of wrist extension required during the push-up. If you fold the towel more, it will place the wrist in less extension. And if you fold the towel less, it will place the wrist in more extension. To start, find a level which is most comfortable to you. If you're looking to eventually return to regular push-ups, you can use this option in order to progressively load the wrist. For example, if you start with the towel folded more, over time you can reduce the thickness as tolerated until you are able to comfortably resume push-ups from the floor. If these 2 modifications do not help make the push-up more tolerable, you may benefit from an option which places the wrist in a more neutral position. Option 3, push-ups on your fist. This is probably the most well-known and convenient modification since it requires no equipment. If this option helps reduce your wrist pain, but it feels uncomfortable on your knuckles or fingers, you can try making one of these adjustments. Perform on a softer surface such as a pad or exercise mat. Change your grip. Instead of making a full fist, use a straight fist. And finally, you can try placing an object or towel in your hand. Option 4, dumbbell. This is one of my top choices because anecdotally, it is more comfortable than the fist option. Additionally, it also allows you to move the dumbbells to different angles. This combination should allow you to find a more tolerable push-up position. I strongly recommend using a hex dumbbell as opposed to a round dumbbell because it is more stable. If you do not have access to those, other equipment to consider includes kettlebells or parallettes. Option 5, TRX or rings. Although this does place the wrist in neutral, this variation will make the push-up more unstable. This is not inherently bad, but depending on your goals, it might not be the most appropriate option. Option 6, barbell. In addition to keeping the wrist in a more neutral position, this option is also a great consideration for scaling the push-up. For example, if performing full repetitions on the ground is too challenging, you can place the bar on a squat rack or rig at a different height. Unlike a bench or box, which usually includes big jumps in height, this will allow you to easily find an appropriate starting point and make minor adjustments over time. If your goal is to eventually resume push-ups from the floor, you can use these modifications as a way to progressively load the wrist and increase your tolerance to this weight-bearing position, just like the towel option that I mentioned earlier. However, you may also benefit from additional wrist extension loading. Here's a progression I've found to be helpful in order from easiest to hardest. Quadruped position, bear position plank, tall plank, feet elevated plank, and finally shoulder taps. Find an appropriate starting point based on your tolerance to wrist extension and level of difficulty. Perform this exercise for 2 to 3 sets of 30 to 60 seconds, 3 to 4 times a week, and progress difficulty as tolerated. And finally, another option worth considering is improving your wrist extension range of motion, as this may help reduce stress placed around that joint during push-ups. Here are 3 simple exercises that I like to use together. Number 1, forward rocking. Start on your hands and knees and place your hands on the floor with your fingers pointing straight ahead. Rock forward, moving your shoulder over your wrist while keeping your elbow straight and the palm of your hand flat on the floor. Move as far as tolerable, hold the end position for 1 to 2 seconds, rock back, and then repeat. Number 2, side to side rocking. Same setup, but rotate your hands outward so fingers point toward the side. Slowly shift side to side, moving your shoulder over the wrist. Again, make sure you keep elbow straight and the palm of the hand flat on the floor. Number 3, backward rocking. For the final movement, you will rotate your hands so the fingers are pointing behind you and place them a bit closer to your knees. Keeping elbows straight and the palm of the heel on the floor, slowly rock backward as far as comfortable, hold for 1 to 2 seconds, and then repeat, moving back and forth. It is recommended you perform all 3 of these exercises for 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 15 repetitions, 3 to 4 times a week. I know this was a lot of information, so let me give you a quick example of how I have utilized the modifications, the loading, and the wrist extension range of motion in the past. After my most recent injury last year, even holding a tall plank was really painful on my wrist. So I started by implementing quadruped holds and wrist range of motion exercises as part of my warm-up 3 to 4 times a week. Additionally, I continued performing push-ups about 2 times a week using a modification which kept my wrist neutral, since this was most comfortable to me at that time. Over time, my tolerance to loaded wrist extension improved. I eventually progressed to shoulder taps and even push-ups from the floor. But this did not happen overnight, as it took me months to eventually get to this point. I strongly recommend you start by experimenting with these different push-up modifications. There is not one that is better than the other, so try them all, and utilize the ones that you find to be the most comfortable. In addition to the push-up modifications, you may also benefit from additional wrist extension loading and/or improving your wrist extension range of motion. And last but not least, you may need to consider other factors such as load management, optimizing technique, or even experimenting with other push-up variations. For more information on those topics, as well as how to modify push-ups if you have pain in other body parts, check out our other YouTube video on the topic. I'll put a link for that in the description box down below. Alright, that is it for today. I hope you guys found this information helpful. And as always, we truly appreciate you guys supporting us and watching our content. It would mean a lot to us if you could tap that like button, subscribe, and even turn on notifications. If you have any questions at all or even suggestions for future videos, just drop those below in the comments. Until next time.